Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Chesterfield Township Planning Meeting for November 18th, 2025. If everyone would please silence your phones. I would like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting on November 18th, 2025 at 7:01 p.m. I would like to make a few introductions. Our township attorney's here tonight, Robert Siebert. Our township planner is here, Jonathan Palin. And from Giffords Webster, Stephanie Osborne and Ava Miller are here. With that, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to call roll. Rick LaBelle.
Here.
Kathy Vosberg. Here. Richard Brokart.
Here.
Brian Carr is excused tonight. Ralph Jaworski. Here. James Kalinowski. Here. Mark Renault. Here. And Eric Heider. Here. And Carl Leonard is here. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from November 4th, wasn't it? Yeah, November 4th, 2025. Motion by Carl Leonard, supported by Eric Heider to approve the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to approve the agenda for tonight as submitted.
Support.
Motion by Carl Leonard, supported by Mark Renault, to approve the agenda. Any comments or questions or anything? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have public comments. If anyone from the audience would like to come up, you have 3 minutes. You can talk about anything you'd want outside of the agenda items. Seeing as no one wants to come up, then we'll move on. We have no public hearings tonight, and we have the regular agenda. Rick, would you like to read the item A?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item A is sign review J25-0424. The Propeller Basin Properties LLC, they're located at 48740 Jefferson Avenue. They're requesting a variance on Chesterfield Township's ordinance of Chapter 52 signs, variances for a freestanding sign. The applicant is present this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come up and tell us what you're looking to do? State your name and...
There's a button on your right-hand side.
Brian with Sinorama, 36886 Harper Avenue, Clinton Township, and I'm here for Propeller Basin. They're looking to do a pylon sign on their property. We're looking for a height variance for the 12-foot. Being a marina, everybody parks in front, and if we keep the sign at the 8-foot height, you're not going to see it. Obviously, the sign to be right near the canal. You're not going to see it over the boats that are in the canal. If you've been to the property, you'll notice the parking lot is slightly below the road. There's a bridge right there. So we're asking for a height variance to 12 feet. Pretty simple, yes.
I don't have any questions of the applicant. I do understand the problem, the issue, because before I even looked at the pictures, I thought, oh, coming from the south going north could be an issue, being able to see the sign. So I understand why there's a application to put the sign higher. I'll leave it at that for now.
Right then. Brian, is the sign going to be lit, backlit?
Internally lit with a electronic message center.
Okay.
Within the ordinance limitations, the client has read the ordinance, understands it has to be shut off all the hours. He has no problems with any of that.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
And that's the only variance, is just the height, not the square footage or anything?
No, we're actually under square footage.
Okay,
That's allowed, just a height variance because of visibility. The property is quite unique because it has basically a telephone pole. So it has a really strange property line. And the one corner of the building is kind of at the property line. Originally, we're gonna have to put it behind the telephone pole, which would have made it, much closer to the building. It wouldn't have been visible. We've been working with the county now for about a year, and we finally got a variance to put it just a little bit forward so that it's in front of the building and
Okay.
it'll be visible.
but the sign space falls within
Oh, yeah.
everything? The only difference is 4 feet, or 4 feet higher
height.
than our 8-foot requirement?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kalinowski.
Yeah, I can see the practical difficulties here, and I would have no problem with it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Brokert.
I've got a few questions for you. So you want to go above the 8 foot to almost 13 feet, correct?
12 feet.
12 feet? Okay, and then the illumination, the bottom part of your sign is illuminated, right? And you can have pictures?
Yes,
things that go
electronic sign,
across it?
correct.
What we were provided is a detailed sketch. There we go, it's right up here. The amount of the illumination, as I understand it, can't be more than 25% of the total sign area. Those have it about 33%. Maybe I'm wrong with my math. When I skinnied it and I laid it out, I got closer to 26. So you're going to need a variance for 5210B, 5210A. And then the electronic messages can't exceed more than 3,000 nits in full daylight or greater than 150 nits at night. You're aware of that. Will this sign exceed those?
No, these are fully controllable. We can control the light, we can control the nits. It's got automatically dimmers built in it. It's not one of those import signs. It's fully
Okay. Are you
controlled.
going to have anything scrolling back and forth? Because when you go from one scene to the next, it has to be instantaneous. So there's
He's
no
already read
jumping
the
around or
ordinance.
flipping. You're
Yeah, he
aware of all
read the
that?
ordinance, he's aware of that. No,
And you need the height because people are parking out front?
it's all parking in front, the boats are in front. The sign's actually gonna be in front of two wells. So there's
Signs in
actually,
front of two wells. Are there boats between the street and the sign?
yes.
12 feet going to be enough? I live right there. I drive by there multiple times a day.
He probably should do more, but we tried to stay within the limits of what we've done in
The
other
limit's 8 feet.
businesses. They're similar, so we're looking to put the sign literally right here to try to get it out of traffic areas. And these two wells are right here.
I have no more questions.
Thank you. Mr. Renault.
Actually, no, my questions have already been addressed. Thank you.
Mr. LaBelle.
I don't have any questions.
The chair has a couple questions. The one picture, can we pull that up, Jonathan? the one picture looking, south. Yeah, back up for a minute. No, back up to that one.
Right there, yeah.
So I was out there today, and the sign is only covering, if you look up at that sign right there, it's only covering diagonally half of the one well. And they said they weren't going to have any, I mean, the only vehicles parked there is if somebody has to park there, if their boat's there. But I guess I'm not sure on the height. Because when I was standing there, obviously, I was coming from New Baltimore. Obviously, when you're driving in that direction, you can't see anything. You see the side of the building. And until I got to the front, where the angle was facing south, as I pulled in the driveway, then you could see that it was Propeller Basin. The only other way it would identify is if you use GPS and you use the address as your marker to your destination. I don't know what the benefit is to have the sign that much taller. If it was 8 foot tall with all the signage on top, you would still see that over top of a car. So if there was a car parked in front of the well, you'd still see the sign. Because you got a big void underneath the sign, not sure how much was there. It doesn't really show the distance from the ground up to the bottom of the reader board. But Propeller Basin Marina, it's up at 13 feet or 12 feet.
12
It's
feet.
going to tower above any car. A car is not even 6 foot tall.
Well, the top of the sign itself is, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, 40 inches
To the very top, yeah, it's 136
to the very
inches.
top.
6 minus 69,
And then you got the encasing around, it's 29.
29 and 40?
So you're going to be around 8 foot clearance on the bottom.
That's what I mean. It's,
Just puts you barely about a foot and a half above cars.
right, and the sign, and that's in the opening of the sign, that lower part, right?
Correct.
So if the sign came down to where you could read, you weren't dealing with the voids, you'd read the top part, Propeller Basin, and you read the reader board. I mean, I'm not sure you need 12 feet to see it. I think you need a sign. Obviously, it needs a sign. But I'm not sure of the height. It doesn't seem like anybody else has any issues with the height, but I guess that's not
I wouldn't say that. I have an issue with the height.
with the height. Well, that's my only issue, because we're going in another year or so, all the signage is gonna get changed. Even at the other marinas, they're gonna be lowering them. So is that gonna open up where everybody's gonna want a 12-foot sign on all the other marinas, instead of dropping to where we're gonna require them to be? I guess if there was something there that was permanent, it could be a brick wall or another sign, it could be something, but looking down south on the ground, looking in that direction, there's really nothing obstructing it, and on the north side, you got some boats that are hanging close to the boats that are stored there on the north side of his driveway. You might have some blockage, because they're close to the drainage ditch. But as you get close to the driveway, boom, the building's right in front of you. And the sign would be right in front of you at that point.
So I brought this picture, kind of show beginning
Like that's,
and end where he was. Right now, the water is extremely low, and you can get an idea that the sign's going to be right here. This is the top of the boat with the water extremely low.
but is the top of the boat gonna be taller than a car that's on land?
Oh, easily,
A car is 5.5 feet, 6 feet tall.
easily.
I don't know, it's just my opinion that I'm not seeing the height as a major thing, but I definitely see the need for a sign. So that's my comments. If you have any other things you'd like to bring
No,
up?
That's pretty much the challenge, because I know like right now the water, I'm a boater, and
I
the
am
water
too.
right now is extremely low. And, 3 years ago, when the water was up, I was using steps 3 up to get on my boat. Now I'm stepping down to get into it. So with the canvas and the bitumen and all that in the boat, with the boat wells being right there,
Well, the thing is, we're identifying what's in that well. I have no idea. It could be just a
I
speedboat.
don't either.
It might not be a large boat. And the way the water levels are, I don't think they're gonna improve that much next year. They might. It'd be nice. I know a lot of people that aren't boating next year because they lost the last couple of months this year because the water dropped so much. So I don't know. It might be a small boat there. But I know this is a long-term fix. But that's my opinion on it. And with that, if you have nothing else, I'll bring it back up to the board and see if anybody else has any
Mr. Chairman, I'd
other.
like to ask a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
One quick question, Mr. Leonard brought up, and you had brought up the elevation change between Jefferson and the parking lot. How far is that?
I'm assuming, standing there, it's probably a couple of feet.
Is it a foot or two? I mean, do you have any data showing?
I don't
that
have any
the
data to
elevation
measure.
changed?
I can only tell visually when you're in the parking lot. You've got the guardrails, the bridge is slightly higher, so you're going up higher at that point. I'm not a surveyor, so unfortunately I can't tell you the
Right.
great difference,
Right.
but there's obviously a difference.
Thank you.
I just want to make one other comment. I'm not saying that the sign should be at 8 feet total height. I'm just not seeing the need for the 12 feet. That's the only, I just wanted to clarify that, so. Anybody else have any comments? Either side? Am I right? Am I left?
Brian, is this the best location exactly for where the sign should be in relationship to visibility for traffic?
Yeah, we've been walking this property for 18 months. This has been a year and a half project between working with the county, walking the property, trying to figure out where cars park, because they park in front of the building. When we actually started this, pickups were parked right there. We already know pickups minimum 6.5 feet tall, especially the newer ones. They keep raising them up. I've got a 20, and I'm 5'8", and it's way taller than I am. So with the pickups lined up in front, they got a boat behind them. We figured we need at least 8-foot clearance in the bottom to see it, to see the sign over it. That's where we came up with going to the 12-foot. I know other businesses in the area have had similar parking issues, and that seemed to be the standard the township was using, so that's why we designed it that way.
So again, even with the pickup truck, if you've got 8 foot clear underneath and it's 6.5 feet tall on a truck, you got 1.5 feet of an open gap. And that's why I'm saying it seems like it's a little much of an ask for variance.
Okay.
The other thing too, Eric, I wanted to mention is, they were supposed to be 15 feet further back towards the building, which would have definitely been blocked by another boat well. And so I see there's some issues there, but, my feeling is the height could be, less and not, not 8 foot, but, something that might work, that would definitely benefit and help this out. So with that, if there's,
Chair, may I have another moment with the
sure,
chairman?
sure.
If you wouldn't mind, I'll take another moment with you. So how much clearance is underneath the sign? I mean, I just did the math. I deducted 29 inches and 49 and 40 inches from 136, the total height.
Correct.
I came up with 5.58 feet underneath the sign.
Underneath?
Okay, underneath the sign, from the bottom of the sign to the ground. Is my math correct? So what I'm wondering, back to what Mr. Leonard was just alluding to, what if we did allow the sign to be another foot taller? Let's say we give you a variance for 9 feet. That would give you almost, well, it would give you 6.5 feet under the sign. Is that tall enough for a car? I think it's tall enough for a car, 6.5 feet.
Didn't you say at 12 feet we had 5.5 feet?
No, so we've got 136 inches tall. The sign is 136. You subtract 40 inches, and you subtract 29 inches, it gives you 5.5 feet underneath the sign,
From the bottom of the sign to the ground?
to the ground,
5.5.
as proposed.
But that's at 12 feet.
And no, that's I'm sorry, that's a 12 feet, you're right.
So if we give them 9
You're right,
feet.
you're right, you're right. I apologize. I was backwards. Sorry.
The average height of a passenger car is between 4 and 5 feet. The average height of a pickup truck, the standard pickup truck, 6 feet 3 inches.
Okay.
And I know it's over 6 foot.
The height of this sign, in my estimation, it's the perfect wrong height. You have to go higher if you're gonna get above the pickup trucks. And if you're only looking at passenger cars, you gotta go small, you gotta go lower. You're right in the middle, in my estimate, you're right in the middle of the wrong height. Well, Mike's, there you go. I think you're right in the middle of a wrong height. I'd be more likely to approve a taller sign than that for the reasons you've given. People are gonna park in front of it. And if there are pickup trucks, and there are, even in your picture, there's a pickup truck, a taller sign would meet your needs. A lower sign is gonna be worse.
Well, 6
So
foot-
the reason you've given us to approve this doesn't make sense to me because pickup trucks are gonna block almost the entire illumination of your sign. If you intend on letting them park in front of the sign, it's not gonna work. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And I've done the same math you did, Rick. So I understand where you're coming from. I think I would have a really hard time approving the variance for that sign because of what you've said.
Yeah,
The
if you-
parking situation is going to make that sign null and void as far as communicating with the illuminated part. Propeller Basin Marina, people will see that, even with a pickup truck. But if there's a pickup truck up front, you might as well get rid of the illumination. That's how I feel.
The other part too is there was a comment made that the road is, what, almost 2 feet taller than the ground level? So,
At the bridge.
so you're gonna be elevated another couple feet when you're driving on the road to where the sign is. I was thinking 10 feet, but I'm not here to negotiate, what I should be. I'm just having a hard time at 12. So with that, I'll entertain a motion if anybody wants to, if there's no other comments or questions, somebody
I
wants to
guess
make a motion?
One other comment.
Sure.
Well, I think, we're concerned about the parking in front of the sign or on the side of the sign. But if you want to go by the law, technically, you're not supposed to do that because the property, if you go look on page 4, is the blue line. You can't technically park on the right of way, even though they do. It's technically you shouldn't. So that kind of takes away, parking in front of the sign. But this is more of a comment than anything. Let's just say that he has to pave the gravel. The pavement would be on the property line and not in the right of way. So that takes all the parking away from in front of that sign.
We've
I'm
had this
just-
before
I'm
with
sorry.
parking in front of a sign. I can't remember which business it was. Was it Buscemi's? And I think we might have had the same thing at the Rust Proof.
Tom's Auto Glass.
Yeah. And, they had the same situation. You're kind of limited to where the sign's going to go and where the best place to be. I kind of went through that with the owner today. We walked around outside a little bit. And I really do feel that a sign is necessary. But again, the height is the part that I'm struggling with. So that's all I have. Anybody would like to make a motion or entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to reiterate, you do have in front of you the variance criteria from the ordinance, so any motion needs to be based on those 5 criteria from the ordinance.
The only other thing I might add to it is currently it's at like total 54 square foot box area. If he decided between now and the time of building it, that he did want to use the full 64 square foot, that would bring the height of the bottom of the sign down. So he's under square footage. It's giving him better ground clearance. He has landscaping in his plans to build around the base of the sign to make it attractive. But if he decided he wanted to expand the top cabinet, the bottom sign has to go down in order to do that. And that would put, to get them to that 64 square feet.
Here,
Thank you.
real quick.
Huh?
Is it 12 feet? I'm looking at the math up there, I see, is it,
136 inches to 144 would be 12 feet.
Yeah,
So
that's the
it's-
original
yeah,
drawing.
it's 11.33, so it's
Yeah.
not really 12. I mean,
That was the original drawing. We updated it
oh, okay.
to 144.
Anybody like to make a motion to approve or deny?
Well, the question is, would you offer a 10-foot sign? If we, maybe that may sweeten the pot for us.
If the city so just, if the board so deemed that it made more sense to go a little bit lower, then I'm sure he would entertain it. He's just he's making quite an investment in the sign. This is not a small investment. And like I say, he's got some landscaping he wants to do with it. Once he does, he's living with it for a long time. So the property's unique, the frontage is unique, the property line and with the setback because of the telephone or power pole, everything about it. Where the sign is proposed on this drawing, the first few times they're out there, pickups are in front of those wells. So it's at 8 foot clear. If you get it at 6 foot clear and you're standing behind the pickup, you're not gonna read the sign. You have to go way back to get an angle to be able to read the bottom of that sign. So as it's designed right now, you only have maybe 1.5 foot of clearance, assuming they're using, that they're parking a stock 4x4 pickup. It's no large tires, it's no anything that these people do to their trucks, it's just stock. So being a
So-
marina, it's trucks.
So I'm not sure where all these trucks are gonna park, because where the sign is, there's only one boat well that's
They come
parallel
into
to the
They
sign.
come into the store, they grab things from the store, they go in the
But all
office.
those trucks, I was there today, my truck was parked on the other side of the telephone pole.
It's,
So I was not anywhere near the sign, and if they're gonna have landscaping in that, I'm not sure if they're gonna be parking, right up next to it, and on the other side, on the south side, there's not that much room for a bunch of trucks, so.
there's not a lot of signs.
So I mean, whoever has their boat there, they might be the only vehicle there, whether it's a truck or a car, so. I'm just one opinion up here, and there's,
Being a boater, you understand, that's busy in the summer, there isn't anything
I
going on. in the
understand
winter.
all of that, but I know what we've done in the past by dealing with parking in front of it, and, we've worked with them, I just thought this was a little more than what
Okay.
is needed. Because what's gonna happen is, everybody's gonna have to modify their signs, and then what? Are we gonna go through this? How many more marinas are down the road? They're all gonna come in here and come up with the same thing, so even if there's a variance, it's something that we have to live with as well.
Understand.
For all the future signs that are gonna be requested, so. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm open to a motion. Recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. After deliberation with the applicant has agreed to lower the sign to a 10-foot level. And what that does is it maintains our 8-foot requirement, but taking into consideration that the road is approximately 2 feet higher, there is a practical difficulty there. With that, I would like to grant the individual a variance of 2 feet for his sign. The sign review is J25-0424. The first item is special circumstances or conditions particular to this property. Because the building is angled and it is lower than Jefferson, I would like to grant the additional 2 feet.
I'll support that.
I got to go through the rest of the other ones here.
Sorry.
The second thing is the commission should consider whether strict enforcement of the ordinance provisions would serve as a useful purpose or hindrance to the sign effectiveness. Allowing the extra 2 feet, I think that it would enhance the availability of the sign so that it does apply there. The safety implications of the proposed sign structure and located must be thoroughly evaluated to ensure that it does not pose significant risk to the public health and safety. He has maintained the setback per Macomb County's Road Commission, so it does not in any way cause any kind of safety problems. The benefits of the sign to the general public and applicant should be weighed against the potential risk hazards for traffic safety and vehicular clutter. Raising the sign another 2 feet and granting the variance for 2 feet does enhance safety. The building is well illuminated. It's very evident where it's at. With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll support that. I have a question on the motion. Is there, do we have to bring up the reader board and the message changing, that there's a certain amount of time between messages?
I can add that to the motion if you'd like. The applicant has already acknowledged the fact, and he is very aware of the township ordinance of how often the sign can change, as well as the overall illumination of the signs.
So, okay.
The applicant is aware of that.
Okay, continued support. So we have a motion by Rick LaBelle, supported by Carl Leonard, to approve the sign review for a 2-foot variance in height. That's for sign review J25-0424. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. It's approved.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies.
Here. What I wanted to ask the applicant is the 10 feet, I know you'd replied to that before, the 10 feet would be satisfactory to the owner?
He asked me to represent him because his child is sick. So we went over a lot of scenarios. We didn't go over splitting.
Yeah, what if something different were offered, yeah?
If something different were offered as far as the height, because if he maxes out the 64 square foot, we're essentially going to end up with the same clearance in the bottom. So at this point, I'll tell him the 10 foot is what was accepted. And if we have to do something different, we'll come back in front of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're all set.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Great, thank you. So we know that many years, many of you go to the Michigan Association of Planning Conference, but this year was a little different and we didn't see any of you there. So we thought we'd bring the conference to you. Some of the sessions that we went to that we thought were helpful and some of the ones that you had interest in. So I'll provide an overview of these. We have really 4 conference sessions, and then I'll touch on data centers because our team did a lot of research on that, and we provided a handout on that. I will note that the first one, Navigating the Law and Planning Practice, I actually did not attend that one, so I'm sharing Jill's notes from it. But luckily we have Mr. Siebert here to maybe answer any questions that you might have. So we'll jump into that. 3 knowledgeable speakers at this one. There are 3 cases and 1 legislative update that I'll review. The first is Joe Stock versus Mayfield. Here, the Michigan Supreme Court reaffirmed that conditional rezonings cannot be used to approve a land use not otherwise permitted by the zoning ordinance in that district. So the situation was that the applicant wanted to expand a non-conforming dragway and put that in as a condition of a rezoning. But that use was not allowed either by right or as a special land use. And so the court clarified that conditional rezonings cannot substitute for use variances, and this was not approved. So there's one case related to conditional rezonings. The second case is related to short-term rentals and homeowners association covenants. This one, there was a homeowners association that had a covenant that restricted what the homes could be used for, and it did not allow short-term rentals. The case ended up going to the Michigan Supreme Court and was split 3-3, which then deferred the ruling of the lower court of appeals as the result of the case. And the lower court had decided that the HOA could maintain those restrictions on short-term rentals. So this did not set statewide precedent for zoning or land use law, but something to keep an eye on because that may evolve. And it does emphasize how private covenants can still impact land use. The third case, and this is one that thankfully Mr. Siebert has been really promoting best practices around our special land use findings and zoning board of appeal findings, all of our findings, and making sure that they're very clear. So in this case, Monterey, First Macon, and Macon Township, and several other cases, the courts have thrown out cases that came to them due to the lack of factual findings that were clear or sufficient articulation of reasons. And so this really underscores the need to have well-documented records. And so in order to do that, it's recommended that all boards incorporate their decisions in a formal statement of findings and conclusions, ensure that those findings are based on competent, material, and substantial evidence on the whole record, and specifically address all the required elements of the relevant zoning ordinances when granting or denying permits or variances. The fourth kind of key thing that was talked about in this session is a pending amendment to the Land Division Act. The idea is to create more opportunities for housing. We know we have a housing crisis in Michigan and throughout the country, and so the state is looking at ways to address that. So currently, if you have a parcel that's between 10 and 20 acres, the lot can be split into 4 separate parcels. Right now, there is legislation that it has been approved by the Senate, approved by the House, and is now waiting signature from Governor Whitmer as to whether that number could be increased to be 10 parcels on a lot that size. If this goes into effect, local ordinances would have to be amended to allow more parcels, so it won't be automatic, but each jurisdiction could decide if that's something they would like to allow. If they do, and statewide, we're likely to see more land division applications for smaller residential developments. So for example, up to 10 lots on what was previously 1 large lot, and built on private roads. And this would not require them to go through the platting process that is currently in play. So this could result in the need for increased public water and sewer supply systems, and could increase the risk of stormwater drainage issues. And so this will be up to local governments to decide if they want to adopt the smaller lot sizes, and then what they need to do to amend their ordinance to mitigate the possible impacts. Do you want to add anything to anything I mentioned? No, you're fine. All right, great. Look at that. The next session, several of you mentioned that this one was of interest. And this one is one that our colleagues, excuse me, Joe Tangeri and Andy Amott did. And I'll focus on planned unit development. So because it was internal to Giffords, I stole their slides. So these are really pretty because they were done for the conference. So you'll get, an abbreviated, a shorter version of the conference session here. So just briefly to bring everyone up to speed, remind you of what a planned unit development is. So this is a specific process. Chesterfield has one that's in their ordinance, your ordinance, and it provides a property owner with zoning flexibility, and it provides the municipality with a benefit. So basically, I think about it as just kind of this negotiation or collaborative effort where the property owner comes seeking relief from something or multiple things and says, if you can, adjust what the standards are for this project because of these things, in return I will be able to give you XYZ that's a benefit to the community. And so the idea with the PUD is that you get projects that are more innovative, more creative, that are better suited to the land, to the use, to the surrounding community. And so it's really a tool, a development tool to provide better projects in a community. The Zoning Enabling Act allows for PUDs, gives municipalities power to permit PUDs and enact zoning ordinance requirements pertaining to them. And again, this idea of waivers or modifications is a key impact of the PUD zoning ordinance. So PUDs are, again, really good for sites that are maybe challenging to work with, given the normal or the standard standards for that district that it's in. It might have different topography, or it might be situated next to another use that needs some consideration. It might be a mixed use sort of project. Lots of different reasons why a PUD would be a good development tool option. And often, again, these are projects that come to communities that really, when you did the master plan and when you put in the zoning codes for it, this was not really in anyone's imagination. And so this flexibility allows these things to come to fruition if they're a good fit with the master plan vision and the needs of the community at the time. This is one example, Dorsey Estates. This is in Ypsilanti. Here the goal was to create density on the site, and here this was actually a master plan kind of specific area that was called out in their master plan. And Ypsi was interested in providing some missing middle, in particular for some of their younger population that's there. So this site was developed. There are ways that communities go about development that are not very good, and so the presenters pointed these out. So as good as PUDs may be, approving too many of them could be problematic. They also point out that some communities use what they called stealth PUDs, which basically you slide in a use or something that's less desirable and really wouldn't make it through in a normal review process by use of a PUD. They also talked about communities that take batches of unjustified dimensional and or use variances to the ZBA. So this would not be the PUD route, but again, just routing everyone to ZBA and granting those variances when they're really not called for. And then some communities simply just avoid PUDs altogether and don't want to have that collaborative back and forth negotiation with the developer. Or in other cases, PUDs are used in lieu of use variances or for minor ordinance deviations. So we're trying to avoid those sorts of situations, and that we really haven't had too many PUDs in my time here, so I can't say if that's something that we do or don't do, but I imagine it's something that Chesterfield does not do, none of those. Some PUD basics. Again, you already have a PUD ordinance in your zoning ordinance, but it might be worth, if this is something that we think we're going to see more PUDs coming to the township, we might want to think about if the ordinance regulations are really incentivizing developers in the right way and also getting what the township wants out of it. So some PUDs can be permissive, where they're pretty open-ended and they allow for a lot of things. Others are really restrictive, where it might limit uses to a narrow range of uses, or have really specific design standards. And then others can be prescriptive, where it says, this is our vision for this area, and this is really what we want to see, and we're not interested in anything else. And those might be more common in a specific site or parcel, as opposed to a more widespread ordinance language for that. We'll also need to, of course, refer to the master plan, see what the master plan calls for if you were to amend the PUD regulations, and then consider uses and development patterns, and then think about if you're interested in promoting new development, redevelopment, or both. And you might apply or have different standards depending on what your goals are and what the circumstances are. Another thing about PUDs is some communities use an automatic qualification process, where, for example, if you are in a certain district, you automatically qualify to be eligible for this sort of development process. Others require discretionary qualification, where the developer has to prove that they're qualified, the project is qualified to be considered a PUD, and then they can move forward from there with the negotiations of the project. And again, a community should consider if certain uses should be excluded from the PUD option, and that can be included in the qualification and eligibility criteria. Process and approval authority. This session was really interesting, in my opinion, because there were two planners that were there, and then they had a developer there. And the developer point of view was something, to be, other than when I'm working directly with someone on a project, but to hear kind of overall what developers need, what do they think, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, was really helpful. And so the developer noted that having a pre-application meeting is really, really helpful in terms of setting the stage, getting everyone together to understand what the vision and the purpose of the project is, what the limitations are, if it's a feasible project for the community to even consider. So that pre-application meeting, she really stressed, was really a key component of what she found to be a successful step in making developments happen. Sometimes communities will choose to use a process that's more similar to a special land use review and approval. Others will do a map amendment associated with the approval for the PUD. The developer also talked quite a bit about how many public meetings are needed and working sessions. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of discussion and back and forth between the developer and the community, but trying to make sure that the public meetings and working sessions and the internal meetings all align with forward progress, and that there's not a whole lot of reworking, especially late in the game. So maybe having public meetings early or working sessions early is a helpful way to go about these. Some communities require a concept review versus a full site plan review. Again, from the developer's perspective, she said that they prefer a concept plan review up front. That just allows them to get a good feel for what is possible, and then to spend the money and the time working out the details with the engineering review and all the other technical reviews that have to be done. And then finally, the development agreement. So at the end, if the PUD is approved, a development agreement is written up that basically says, here's what this project is going to bring to the township, here's the modifications or waivers that will be provided, and outlines what all will be on the site. And again, the developer said, it's helpful to, she finds it helpful to bring a draft development agreement earlier on in the process and really work through that language throughout as things evolve to make sure everyone's on the same page and comfortable. Again, we talked about public benefit. Often PUDs will provide something to the community so that they can get those modifications or waivers, and that can be a range of things. This is another example. This is Fraser Square, 71 townhomes and duplex homes. This was in Grosse Pointe Schools, and this was a PUD project that was done fairly recently. So some other considerations, if your development agreement is really specific, it can be challenging to make changes to the site in the future. So when writing the development agreement, which would be something that the Planning Commission wouldn't be involved in other than outlining what the waivers and modifications are and the benefits, but making sure that there's some flexibility if you're interested in future changes to the site or allowing those future changes is important to consider. And then, as you know, it's always important to have the Planning Commission and the legislative body kind of on the same page with projects so that developers aren't blindsided when they go to get final approval if it has to go to the legislative body. A couple other quick things. There are what the presenters called PUD siblings. So things that are either like variations of PUDs or subsets of PUDs. One of them is adaptive reuse. So if you have sites that could be reused in a certain way, you might consider designating it as or thinking about a set PUD standards that could support the redevelopment of those sites. We know that adaptive reuse is important in terms of sustainability, in terms of the materials, and also in terms of keeping the community fabric together in that area. This was a vacant historic three-story building in a residential zoning district, and they did an adaptive reuse here where flexibility was granted to, use flexibility was granted to allow various uses in the building. And this is an example of an adaptive reuse up in Marquette, turned it into nice apartments. Another, not PUD, but kind of similar way of thinking about things that is maybe more, you have more experience with, is the cluster residential development. So in this situation, developers can increase the density of an area in exchange for providing some other benefit. Often it's open space or environmental, like preservation of area or protection of a significant natural feature, something like that. There's also planned development or master plan districts where the township might identify a site of a larger area and say, this is what we want to see. So county line crossings would be an example you may be familiar with from the last master planning process that fits this, this category. And then there's flexible development districts or overlays. So this still has the base zoning, and the standards typically are held for that, unless this overlay has standards that override it. So for example, we work with another community that has an overlay for their commercial corridor, and they require quite a few design and like landscaping and architectural elements to create a cohesive look in the corridor, and so that's how they. And there is some flexibility that's given for people who can go above and beyond the minimum requirements of the corridor. Again, and just a couple quick comments from the developer. She noted, that PUDs are really comprehensive. You're bringing a typically more complex, unique project to a community, and so making sure that everything is aligned early is really important and that everyone's on the same page. She also, again, felt that it was important to educate people early, the public if possible, but also the various boards and commissions that they would have to go through so that they, again, everyone's on the same page, they're familiar with the project, and hopefully you can head off any concerns early on, and those can be addressed earlier in the design process. She suggested hosting working sessions, again, just increasing the communication, clarifying project goals, making sure everyone is on the same page, engaging early and often, anticipating concerns, so thinking about what the public might say, thinking about what the community might, the township or city administrators might say, and then work together to solve those issues. And she just really noted that, you know, it's, if a developer comes to the community with a PUD sort of idea, having a good relationship is really important to having a good project outcome. So again, here's Dorsey Estates. I showed that earlier on. This is missing middle housing in Ypsilanti for ideally younger residents, but could be for whoever. They did have some challenges with the porches. Those went into the setback, so that was one place that they asked for modifications and waivers. But in exchange, they did provide pocket parks, and they provide a traditional neighborhood design in a historic district, bringing some of it out to the existing public sidewalk, but also oriented some towards the private road. So neat development. And then finally, here to celebrate the success of PUDs, she said, you know, think about them as you're getting something that's predictable. You're going into this process with the idea that hopefully you'll end up with a development agreement that is what you were envisioning, that's predictable, you know what you're going to get, but with that predictability, you're going to get, there needs to be some flexibility to make all those things happen. A lot of these projects have good community buy-in because they are innovative, creative, they meet various needs that aren't able to be met with the current standards. In cases where you can get efficient approvals, that's always worth celebrating. And often, again, these projects provide balance or create an opportunity to balance various interests and show policy in action. So I'm going to pause there. That's 2 of the 3 sessions. Questions, comments? Keep rolling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that presentation. That was great. I learned a lot sitting here in a few minutes instead of somewhere else for a few days, but I'm sure we've got even more out of it. Could we go back to that? You mentioned that one of the planners, one of the developer was talking about the pre-app meeting. And the question about that was, who would be part of that pre-app meeting? Is it different than when a developer would come to, say, just the planning department and start asking some questions?
I think it could be a little bit different for every community. What we do here currently is we have written into our ordinance the pre-application phase, which is a public hearing with the planning commission, where there's no formal action. It's just the beginning process. They come in, they pitch their project. The planning commission can share thoughts, say, we like this aspect, we don't like that aspect. We need to go back to the drawing board, or that's never going to fly. So that pre-application phase is done. The formal pre-application process in Chesterfield is by ordinance done with the planning commission, but that's not to say there isn't even a pre-application where they're meeting with staff to kind of go over, you know, what the ordinance expectations are.
Do you think the developer thought there should be additional type of meeting? or used in a different way? I'm just curious.
I don't think so. I think her point was to have communication early and often with staff and any other important stakeholders in the community, and then to carry those conversations through. I think she was really adamant that you shouldn't be like the first time people are hearing about the project and that the planning commission or legislative body is hearing the project is the night that they're making a decision on it. So having early conversations and working together to meet the needs of all the parties and to use the site to the best use was really her takeaway, I think.
Okay, I see that some of that does take place here, but we also think of, not with a PUD, but there's other examples where it goes to planning, it's fine. Then perhaps something, or maybe it's not quite fine, but anyway, goes through the whole process and then it gets to the board of trustees and all of a sudden it falls apart and what they'd been walked through. The planning commission is, I think, very thorough sitting here, and you explain things to the applicant, and so that came to mind when you were talking about that. So I don't have a solution exactly, but that would be something I think we need to continue communicating with each other. The boards need to also develop relationships with each other too. So it's that helps take that surprise away. Thank you.
Mr. Klonowski?
Yeah, that, we had the we used to have the pre-planning meetings. And, you know, now you don't have as many agenda items, but when you had 10, 20 agenda items, those pre-planning meetings that we used to have were invaluable. And you would have, it helped a lot. And it does help a lot on that. And now on the PUDs, sounds like there's a lot of negotiation going on. Is that, am I reading that right?
It can be that way. For example, I'm working on a PUD in another community that's been ongoing for way too long. Maybe I shouldn't say it that way. It's been going on for a long time because there's been a lot of back and forth between the planning commission. The planning commission will say we want to see this, and then the developer will bring a concept plan, and it's not quite right. So they're getting close. They're fine tuning, and they started kind of this far apart, and they've made their way together. So it's taken that's taken that community quite a bit of time and discussion. I think there are other opportunities, for example, some of the working sessions that the developer brought up where it might be a portion of the planning commission and staff and the developer that might get together and review the concepts, or talking to the public ahead of time. I think that could have headed off some of the concerns. So it doesn't have to be a long drawn out process with lots of negotiation. Someone could bring a concept to you that, you know, maybe you've outlined in the master plan and it matches and you say, that's great. That's what we wanted. That's what we said we wanted. Or it could be something that they imagined and all of you say, this is actually a really good idea and a really good fit. We don't have any, you know, real problems with it. So it could go both ways. But the idea is that there probably is a little bit more negotiation and discussion than a typical site plan because there is the opportunity for waivers and modifications, which isn't always the case in standard developments.
Yeah, I know we've been told more than once that we can't develop or make, how can I say this? We cannot develop the project for them, but yet, in this case, it sounds like there is negotiation going on. So where's the line there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, and maybe Mr. Siebert or anyone, what was it?
I knew you
Okay, I'll talk and he'll tell me if I'm right. If not, he'll correct me. But yeah, so you would not, you're right. Planning Commission does not design projects for applicants, but you can say, we would really like to see this sort of thing. Can you incorporate that in your project? Or we really don't like this building material that you've used, or we don't like, we would like to see more landscaping. And it's up to the developer to take your feedback and incorporate that. You're not saying, I want more trees in this area and I want you to use this sort of building material. But what you are telling them is what you propose doesn't quite meet what we think of as an exemplary enough project to grant whatever modifications or waivers you're asking for. And we're asking you to step it up a little bit more so that we benefit from this project just like you will. Anything to add? Okay.
Did you have more, Stephanie?
No, sorry.
Oh,
I have a couple more slides, but did anyone else have questions?
everybody all set with questions?
I have a question.
Oh,
This question's for Mr. Palin. We currently, I believe we have 2 PUDs in Chesterfield Township. We've got the one where Cabela's is at, as well as where Walmart and, there's 2, correct?
We actually have more than 2. So the town center where Cabela's is at is a PUD. Waterside is a PUD.
Oh, Waterside.
Where Walmart is actually our C4 district, which is kind of, I think, one of those siblings you were talking about. The township, I don't know, 2 decades ago created the C4 district, which is essentially outlines a PUD, but with the zoning district itself, provides flexibility with an overall development plan. And then we have Plymouth Village is a residential community that's a PUD. What came out of that was some of the future improvements coming to the County Bowls Park. And I think there's one more too that I'm drawing a blank on right now, but there is a few in the township.
Has it been beneficial to the township, having the PUDs?
Yeah, I mean, the County Bowls is a perfect example. That's, coming to life. It's been a little while since that PUD was approved. I mean, it was before I was with the township, but we're starting to make improvements there, which probably would not be happening if it wasn't for that. The town center one it's been a little bit slower because right as that was getting off the ground, the economy went down. So it's on, I think, the second or third owner since that PUD was approved. But, the township did get some protected natural resources there and some redevelopment of former lagoon sites. So, I mean, there's certainly benefits, yeah.
Thank you.
anyone else? No? Stephanie, it's all yours.
Yep, just a few more things. The next session that we discussed, I'm getting there, or the next session that I attended, was the Not Your Grandpa's Parking Study, Innovation in Parking Standards. This one was really interesting. This one took place in Sterling Heights. The city, according to SEMCOG, has 42% of it covered either with buildings or roads, parking lots. It's all impervious, 42% of it. And so they recently went through a master planning process, and they realized that there's a big mismatch between their parking that they have and the parking requirements that are in place currently, and their future land use vision, current market trends, and their sustainability goals. They just adopted a sustainability plan recently as well. And so their current process is that parking reductions, no matter how big the reduction, it currently has to go to City Council for review and approval. And so with the master plan, there was quite a bit of public input that was provided, and some of that public input indicated that around key corridors, people wanted to see more compact development. They wanted to see green space, mixed uses, and so the master plan took all that information and provided some ideas to meet that vision. So here's a list of strategies, various ways to create those more pedestrian-friendly mixed-use nodes. And with the master plan, they discussed what each of these could look like. And after the master plan was adopted, the city said, okay, we really want to tackle this issue, but we need some data before we start changing a bunch of things in our ordinance to support this. And so that's where the parking study came in. So they looked at 35 private off-street parking lots at these mixed-use nodes throughout the city and then also along Van Dyke. They looked at historical aerials and also did current field counts. So they had data collection for multiple years, data points over multiple years. And then they took the supply data, so how many parking spaces are available in each spot, and they took the utilization data, how many cars did we see in each parking area, and they put it into a GIS model that included some other data points, and were able to map various things with it. And then they took the results of how much parking there is, how much it's used, and they compare that to the ordinance requirements and the ITE, the International Transportation Engineers Manual. Their findings, I think, were pretty impressive. So in 2025, the most utilized parking lot was 55% utilized, and that was at a condominium development. And across all the parking lots that they looked at in 2025, the average utilization was only 27%. So they have significantly more parking than they actually need. And they compared this again to the ordinance and to the ITE manual and determined that overparking would exist even if the sizing followed just the ordinance and didn't include additional spaces, or followed just the ITE manual and didn't include extra spaces. So they just have a lot of parking there. And so this substantiated what they were hearing and seeing. Here's an example. This is one of the nodes at 17 Mile and DeQuinder. You can see some aerials from 2017, 2019, and then 2022. This parking lot had a 31% utilization, and that means that it had 26,000 square feet that could have been used for something else. So you can see the chart on the right where they have, they're overparked even according to the zoning ordinance by 24 spaces. And really, again, they're not using, they don't really have a need for all this parking here. This is another example at 15 Mile and Ryan Road. We've got a couple more data points across the years, 2010, 2015, 2018. March 2020, we all know what was going on then. I'm not sure if that was pre or post shutdown, but there's some cars there. And then June 2022, this parking lot had 20% utilization, which means that there's about 15,000 square feet available for other uses. So they did some reform, they did some changes to their zoning ordinance, and this is one of their early success stories. So here someone came to them and said, okay, we want to redevelop this site, and they use a GIS tool to examine how much parking was actually needed based on utilization, and took it to city council, and the city council justified a reduction of 150 parking spaces. And you can see the picture on the bottom is the new development, and so here, instead of having the sea of parking, they gained a new building. They have 54 additional trees, 197 shrubs, and then this 4,500 square foot plaza with seating. And you can see, I don't know if my arrow shows up. Nope, it doesn't show up. That's okay. To the left of the building, you can kind of see where there's a mismatch in the pavement coloring. There's a pedestrian walkway that extends from the strip kind of at the back of the site all the way up to the sidewalk along the roadway. So that was a pretty neat conversation with our friends in Sterling Heights about this, and they're hopeful to see more new development and changes to their parking areas to better use the land and meet some of their sustainability goals. The last session that I'll talk about, and then we'll talk briefly about data centers. The last session is bicycle futurism, and this is just one slide about key takeaways. There wasn't anything that was really like groundbreaking in here. But we do know that people are starting to use e-bikes and use them in more places, becoming more popular, and we're seeing them on roadways. And biking is great, whether it's an e-bike or a traditional bike. We know that it provides health benefits, it's good for the environment, reduces congestion on roads. So we do want to incentivize these things. And what the presenters were saying was that the guidelines that have been put in for road design, or that are out there for road design, are often misconstrued as standards. And so people will read the IT manual or other resources for how to build a road that might include a bike lane or might not. And basically those are really just guidelines, but they suggest more space is needed than what is really needed for safe travel. And we know that narrower streets are safer, both for cars and for pedestrians and bicyclists. So one of the key takeaways was a suggestion to have narrower streets, both for safety reasons, but also the street networks that are created when we have more streets that are narrow. Those can actually carry more vehicles and can decrease travel times as opposed to just continuously widening our streets. So she was a big advocate for that. And then she also talked about reducing confluence points to improve the level of service, safety, and travel time. So that was the bicycle one. And finally, data centers. I did not attend a session on data centers, but our team has done quite a bit of research because it's becoming an important planning topic here in Michigan. So why are they becoming more important here in Michigan? Well, the state has announced that they're providing tax relief, long-term tax relief for data centers to locate here. So we're seeing more proposals for them in more communities. In short, data centers are what makes lots of our internet sort of activities work. Data centers house the computers and the servers and all the other infrastructure that's needed to do various computing functions. So if you've ever saved anything to the cloud, that's because there was a data center. And they are known for not only the amount of data that they store and in that, but also they do store it safely and securely. And so that's important to note. There are various types of data centers, various sizes, but they all kind of have some similar concerns. Most commonly water and energy use. They're very water intensive for their cooling needs, and then they're energy intensive for all the computing work that's happening. And so we do have planning tools that we can use to signify where data centers might be more desirable, and then ways to mitigate their impacts. So more about that is in the newsletter that Ava passed out. I'll also mention, I forgot to mention this, the second handout that you have is a handout from the PUD session, so you're welcome to both of those. And that's what I have from the MAP conference recap. Happy to try to answer any other questions you have about the sessions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? No? Oh, Kathy?
I have a question about data center locations. We hear about them in wide open areas. Is there any type of data center development that's reusing unused buildings or locations?
I believe the tax incentives are heavily focused on brownfield sites, but I'm not sure about reuse of buildings being a large component or any part of the tax relief. So I'm not sure if they're incentivized to do that. I've not heard of any examples. I guess that's the short answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, The planning commissioners have 3 minutes. If anybody has anything else to talk about, Kathy, Eric, Ralph, James, Rich, Mark, Rick?
Just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
And I would like to do the same. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and our next meeting is December 2nd, if we have an agenda. So with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 8:21. Board member. Motion by Carl Leonard to adjourn the meeting at 8:21, supported by Mark Minot. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that's it for tonight. Thank you.